Hello and welcome. My name is Lexi Jong, and here I like to talk about luxury beauty. As you can tell, I've been a little bit under the weather, so today we are going to be going through some foundations. So we're taking a look at the Guerlain Parure Gold Skin Matte and Radiance foundations, as well as the Cle de Peau The Foundation. Now, the clips that I'll be showing you have all been taken over the last it's about 6 to 7 weeks. So we've got various clips. I've been doing a ton of wear tests. So we're going to go through my thoughts and details on each of these foundations. Let's start off with the Guerlain. So these are the Guerlain foundations, and I'm going to start off by showing you a clip of the matte foundation. We've got a wear test and everything here as well. Now, both the matte and the Radiance foundation are both $65 at Selfridges. That is currently the only place I see them available for purchase from the US. But there are different locations that have these foundations available. For example, the Canadian Guerlain site seems to have the matte foundation, but not the Radiance. Hong Kong has the Radiance and the matte. So it all depends, where you're looking. But these are $65 on Selfridges. They are not currently available on the Guerlain US site. Now, a lot of the information for both the matte and the Radiance foundation are going to be the same. So I'm going to go ahead and show you some different clips of both the matte and the Radiance foundation separately and mixed with the Chanel Sublimage Lessons to 10. Now, as you can see, looking at these demos, the shade that I picked up is 00C, which is actually not a great shade for me. It's a little bit too light and just slightly too pink. So a little bit too cool, a little bit too light. Now, the reason I picked that up is because in the L'Essentiel foundation, I typically wear 00N, and that was not available. But the shade range for this is different from the shade range from the L'Essentiel foundations. So definitely check that out before purchasing. Now, both the matte and the Radiance foundation are rejuvenating skincare based products. And what that means is we've got 85% of the actual ingredients in the product is going to be without pigments or mother of pearl and should all have an effect on the skincare. So 85% of these products is supposed to be skincare based. Now, this foundation, as I mentioned, retails for $65 at Selfridges. It's 35 milliliters, which is 5 milliliters more than the standard foundation size of 1 ounce. And this is important because one of the reasons that they were able to make this change from 30 milliliters to 35 milliliters is because of their new packaging. The new containers for this foundation have new stricter requirements. So they are trying to reduce the environmental impact. So what they have done is they have reduced the weight of the glass. So the previous container was actually the same size container on the outside, but they're able to now fit more product in because they have less glass. So the Parure Gold foundation from 2019 had 100 grams, and now we have 90 grams for the glass. And the glass is also 10% PCR, post-consumer recycled glass. Another change here is the screwable pump that they have on here also facilitates recycling of this particular product. So those are going to be some differences in the packaging that have allowed them to increase their sustainability. Now, the matte foundation has 18 shades. The Radiance foundation comes in 14 shades. And one of the main features for both of these is going to be the inclusion of 24 karat gold blended with white peony extracts. And this is supposed to give you, a natural radiance to the skin, whether you're in the matte foundation or in the Radiance foundation. They both have these ingredients, and you're just looking at the finish as to whether it's going to be matte or radiant. As you can see from the wear test, even with the matte, that radiance is evident. When you first put that matte foundation on, it looks very matte, but over time, more of that radiance peeks through. The skin becomes a little bit dewier. It's definitely something where, the radiance from the matte foundation will shine through over the day, over the hours, but it's still not separating due to the oil on my skin. You can see that in the wear tests. And the Radiance foundation is going to give you a smooth, illuminating complexion. I think both the matte and the Radiance foundation are both very effective at accomplishing their goals. According to Guerlain, After 4 weeks of wearing either of these foundations, your complexion is even, your skin texture is refined, and your skin quality is improved. And this was based off of a clinical evaluation that they did on 34 Asian women. They also tested 25 Caucasian women, and from that test, they found that it gives you 24-hour comfort on the skin, hydration, and so forth. So those are going to be the results according to Guerlain. For me personally, I think that the foundations actually hold up really well. So I think that they look beautiful on the skin. I think I personally don't have the best color match. So, it's a little bit harder to see the effects since it's not the best color match, which is why I then chose to mix it with the Chanel Sublimage L'Essence de Teint foundation in BR12. BR12 is a bit too dark for me, so I figured it would be a good mix to mix it with this foundation, which is a little bit too light. And you can see mixing it with the matte, you're going to get this really beautiful, more of a satin finish because the Chanel is going to be a little bit more radiant than the matte. And mixing it with the Radiance foundation, you're going to get more of a dewy glow to the skin. So overall, they're both very effective. They mix very well together. The Chanel and both Guerlain foundations, there was no issue with separation or pilling or anything like that. So they hold up really well. These blend well. I did also try mixing these Guerlain foundations with random other foundations like the Cle de Peau, and again, no issues with that. And when I say the Cle de Peau, I mean their Radiance and Matte Fluid foundations. So those also mix very well. So I think the formula itself is very nice. Overall, these are a really great foundation. Just depends which finish you want and if you're able to access it. Compared to the Guerlain L'Essentiel foundation, which I've always really enjoyed, I would have to say that this formula is slightly better than that. The matte foundation, though, just so you know, it does kind of dry pretty quickly. So you kind of want to work quickly so that you get a smooth appearance. The Radiance, obviously, is going to be a little bit dewier. You've got a little bit more leeway there with blending that out. But I think that these finishes hold up just a little bit better than the Guerlain L'Essentiel foundations. So let's take a second here. We're going to look at the packaging here for these foundations. You can see that the Radiance has your clear glass, whereas we have frosted glass for the matte. Other than that, the packaging is going to be the same. You can see we have a flat back here, which makes it easy for storage, but it is going to be rounded here in the front. And, it does have SPF 20 with a PA triple plus for the Radiance and SPF 15 PA triple plus with the matte. Taking off the lid, you can see you've got this pump bottle here. We're going to go ahead and just put a little bit of this foundation on the hand so we can see this. We're going to let this dry while we look at the Cle de Peau. We're just going to blend out a little bit here at the bottom. So this is 00C of the Radiance. And this is 00C of the matte. So you can already see a slight color difference between the Radiance and the matte. The matte is going to look a little bit whiter, a little bit chalkier. I would say that is true on the skin as well, but we'll see how these dry. While we're letting these set, we're also going to let the Cle de Peau, the foundation, set. This is in shade I-10, and it does come with a little spatula, little tray and everything, but I'm just going to use my finger right now. So this is shade I-10. You can see the texture and consistency of this is going to be different. It's more of a lightweight lotion, very dewy, moussey kind of texture, and it really kind of sinks into the skin. So looking at the Cle de Peau, the foundation, you can see it comes in a very luxurious glass jar. That's a plus or a minus. Because of the texture, it is going to be a little bit of a thicker, moussier texture. I mean, it's very lightweight, very thin, but it's not like serum-y or liquidy. So going through a pump, I can see could be a little bit more challenging with this product. But again, having an open jar like this is not typically the best for preventing things like oxidation and bacterial contamination. So just something to note. This foundation does retail for $270 US. It is my most expensive foundation to date. It comes in 15 shades. And I did not want to like this because of the price. So I'll tell you that now. I tested it for a long time but I really do love this foundation. According to Cle de Peau, this foundation will improve softness, hydration, and firmness after 4 weeks. And it's an ultra luxurious weightless foundation. Again, we've got skincare ingredients here to blur imperfections. It's supposed to reduce the look of fine lines and wrinkles and give you a radiant finish. And that radiant finish is supposed to last up to 24 hours. It's a lightweight cream, and according to Cle de Peau, it melts on contact with skin to moisturize, plump, and protect. And it reduces the appearance of lines and wrinkles while promoting firmness. We have a sheer buildable finish, and we have SPF 22 that protects against harmful UV rays. According to their test on 30 women, it improves softness, hydration, firmness after 4 weeks. 72% felt that fine lines have become less visible after 4 weeks, and 84% felt that skin has become more beautiful after 4 weeks. Now, like other Cle de Peau foundations and like their luminizers and so forth, they do have their light empowering enhancer complex, which is going to be a complex of ingredients that Cle de Peau uses to give you that radiant finish. And that is going to promote light diffusion. They also have a few other key ingredients. We have the Precious Laxus complex with chai hu extract. I might have said that incorrectly. That's supposed to improve the appearance of firmness and elasticity of the skin. They have Japanese prickly ash, thyme, chestnut rose extracts, and so forth. And we also have a skin empowering illuminator that includes platinum golden silk in here. And that's supposed to enhance skin's ability to defend itself against internal and external stressors. So they've got their blur perfection technology to give your skin a little bit blur, give you a more flawless looking complexion here. So overall, I have to say though, this foundation, it's really nice. Now, is it $270 nice? You know, that's really an individual decision. But I have to say that I have been really enjoying this foundation, and, you know, it's incredible. Now, texturally, this foundation reminds me of 2 different foundations. It reminds me a little bit of the Koh Gen Do Moisture Foundation. The Koh Gen Do Moisture Foundation is going to be a little bit thicker, a little bit like firmer in texture than the Cle de Peau. The Cle de Peau, again, is going to have a little bit of an airier texture. But on the skin, they're both going to give you this really natural finish to the skin where it almost looks like you have no makeup on. And they're both going to give your skin a little bit of radiance. The Cle de Peau will give you a little bit more radiance, also gives you a little bit more blurring, and is just going to be even slightly less, a little bit more natural looking on the skin even than the Koh Gen Do, which is really hard to beat. It's one of my all-time favorite foundations. Now, the Koh Gen Do foundation, I ran out of it, so I don't have any more of that. But that one is under an ounce. So it's, I forget how many milliliters. I'll look that up and put that on the screen. But we do have less than an ounce of product, and they have recently raised their prices. I believe it's somewhere around $100 US now. So it's expensive, but it's still going to be less expensive than this Cle de Peau foundation. And the other foundation that this reminds me of is the Chantecaille Future Skin Gel. So I have a demo here that I'm showing you right now of the Cle de Peau, the foundation on one side of my face, and the Chantecaille Future Skin Gel on the other side of the face. Texturally, these both have a very similar feeling when you actually, touch them. But I have to say that coverage-wise, you are going to get a little bit more coverage. You get a little bit more blurring. You get a better finish with the Cle de Peau than the Chantecaille. The Chantecaille, you really need to build up with a lot of products if you want to get more coverage from this particular foundation. It's going to be very natural on the skin, but it's looking natural, whereas the Cle de Peau looks natural with extra radiance. So it just makes your skin look a little bit better. Whereas the Chantecaille is your skin looking as best as it naturally could without any additional radiance, if that makes sense. So, that's kind of going to be your biggest difference between those. But again, I think the Cle de Peau offers a bit more coverage and blurring technology than the Chantecaille. Let me know what you think down below in the comments as to which of these foundations looks better on the skin. But I have to say that overall, if you are just ignoring the price and looking for a great foundation, the Cle de Peau would definitely, be at the top of my list for foundations that I really love. And, I think it's a really great product. It's very, very expensive, so it is possible to find similar, not exactly the same products for less price. And if you're trying to pick between the Cle de Peau, Koh Gen Do, or Chantecaille, between the three of those, I have to say that the Cle de Peau would be my favorite, but cost-wise, I think I would probably go with the Koh Gen Do just because, it's almost just as good, but it is going to be less expensive. So let's move on to some comparisons here. These are the foundation swatches as they have been sitting on my hand. Again, we have the Guerlain Radiance, followed by the Matte, followed by the Cle de Peau. You can see a vast difference in the shades here between the Cle de Peau and the Guerlain. This is definitely going to be my shade. If you're looking at something like the Koh Gen Do, I wear shade 012 is going to be closest to this. And the Porcelain shade in the Chantecaille Future Skin Gel is also closest to that. So let's swatch that one right now. So here is the Chantecaille, and this is going to be the shade Porcelain. This is the closest, but you can see it is going to be slightly more yellow than the Cle de Peau. The Cle de Peau, it's actually going to be more neutral, a little bit peachier, whereas the Chantecaille is not. Now, the Chantecaille packaging, we also have a jar. This is going to be a plastic jar. This is 30 milliliters, so 1 ounce, same size as the Cle de Peau, but notice packaging size is very different. And the Cle de Peau is definitely going to be in a weighty glass jar, very heavy duty. Now let's take a look at the Cle de Peau. These are the Radiant Fluid Matte Foundation, frosted glass, and the Radiant Foundation in the natural finish in the transparent glass. So this is going to be shade I-10, just like what I have on for the foundation. So you can see shade wise here, I'll just put a little bit of that right there. You can see the I-10, how close that is. And this is going to be our radiant finish versus the Guerlain. Now texturally between the Cle de Peau and the Guerlain, they're both going to be thin formulas, but I do feel like the Cle de Peau feels just a little bit more, it's a little bit thinner, a little bit more serum-like, a little bit more weightless on the skin, in my opinion. Now, price-wise, the Cle de Peau is going to be more expensive. Now, these foundations, this is the matte one that I just swatched here. Now, just like the Guerlain foundation, these are 35 milliliters instead of the standard 30 milliliters. And they both also have sunscreen here. So we have SPF 20 in the matte and SPF 25 with a PA double plus in the Radiant, or the Radiant Natural. So Radiant for Guerlain versus Cle de Peau, matte versus Cle de Peau. And this is the foundation right here. You can see the color of the I-10 is going to be pretty similar here. Let me just show you the matte. So here's the matte in I-10. And you can see that the foundation, let's put a fresh swatch right next to it and see what kind of oxidation there was. All right, so looking at these, we'll put the foundation right here. You can see that it's going to be slightly more neutral than the fluid formulas here, but it's going to be pretty similar in color. Cle de Peau is really good about keeping their colors pretty accurate across the foundations. So that's how much oxidation we have though over time with that. Let's take a look at the Guerlain. So here's a fresh swatch of the Radiant. You can see there's really not going to be that much oxidation. It does get a little bit pinker, a little bit rosier, but it does not get significantly deeper. And here's a fresh swatch of the matte. And again, there's not going to be significant oxidation there either. Now, if I had to choose between the Cle de Peau versus the Guerlain foundations, personally, my personal preference is the Cle de Peau. I absolutely love these. And my personal favorite finish is actually mixing the two of these together. I like mixing the Guerlain finishes together as well, but I think these are great, but there's just something about the Cle de Peau that just works a little bit better on me. So I prefer these. So it's really a personal preference, but I think these at 65 US dollars are a really, a really great foundation. So I think they're a very good option if you can find a color match that you like. Let me show you the Guerlain L'Essentiel. So this is the Guerlain L'Essentiel in the matte. So this is shade 00N, and this is the matte, which never came to the US. You have to buy this from Selfridges or somewhere overseas, but you can see 00N in L'Essentiel is way deeper than the 00C in these new Parure Gold foundations. So just something to note, if you do have a similar color, I would definitely take a look at some of the other shades there, and yeah, just check your shade before purchasing. Now, if you're interested in seeing more about how the Cle de Peau, the foundation, comes packaged or anything like that, I'll leave a link down below in the description box to the opening of this and my first impressions. But I have to say that overall, I think all three of these foundations are great. Based just on the foundations alone, the Cle de Peau would be my preference. But I think that the Guerlain foundations are really good, especially for the price point. So I think they're really nice, provided you can find a good color for you. So I hope this was helpful, and thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you guys very soon. So have a great day and stay safe and healthy.